if you know there's no mistakes, the perspective shift is we are right where we are supposed to be. How
Yes.
comforting is that? Hi guys, we are your hosts, Lori.
And Shanice, certified spiritual life coaches, and we're so glad you're here. Welcome to our series, The Shifts in Perspective That Changed Everything, a series here on Branching In, where we talk about our life-changing pivotal moments.
Yes, and we'd also love it if you take a moment to just like and subscribe. It means a lot to us to have your support as we continue to spread more self-awareness. So, this is part 4. And today we are going to discuss the shift in perspective that there are no mistakes in life. So, Shanice, what do we mean when we say there are no mistakes?
Yeah, that can sound weird if you've never heard that before, right? Well, from a spiritual perspective, you have never truly made a mistake. The idea of a mistake comes from the mind's limited perception, which judges experiences as right or wrong, success or failure. But in reality, everything that happens is a part of your evolution, unfolding exactly as it needs to. What you perceive as a misstep is in truth a necessary experience, one that brings growth, wisdom, and deeper understanding.
Yeah. So, every situation that appears to have gone wrong is actually guiding you forward. The universe does not work in errors, it works in experiences, and each one designed to bring you closer to remembering who you truly are.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Yeah, on a
Right?
spiritual level, it makes like I get it. Like why when we say there are no mistakes. So, Shanice, how did you view mistakes growing up? Like what kind of household were you in? How did everybody look at mistakes growing up?
Oh, man. So my situation was a little bit different. I mean, I know most kids growing up, you have parents who are trying to steer you in the right direction, help you when you make a mistake. But I grew up under a microscope, like a
Mm.
spotlight of sorts. So, like my stepfather at the time, he was a teacher and he tutored kids for like SATs and all that. He was very intelligent. And so he worked with me a lot, like flashcards and a lot of different things, which was great. Like that part, I still remember my multiplication, but it was very rigid. It was very strict. And if I got an answer wrong, it was made into a very big deal. And so I learned early that making a mistake was not safe. And so very early on, I kind of started that mental programming of like, okay, I can't make a mistake. Like a mistake is bad. And like sometimes it wasn't that big of a deal. And then other times it was a huge deal. And I would get yelled at. And it just made it so that I never ever wanted to make a mistake. And so I ended up becoming a perfectionist at a very young age out of survival. And then to add on top of that, I was the eldest. So I grew up with 7 younger brothers and sisters. And for some reason, it was my fault if one of my brothers and sisters made a mistake. They weren't blamed for it. I was. I was taken aside and I was spoken to. And it was made to be something that it was my duty, my responsibility to prevent my siblings from getting into trouble or making a mistake. Which looking back, that was never my responsibility. Obviously, I understand that now. I did not understand that then. And so it was no longer just a fear of my mistakes. It was then a fear of other people making mistakes because then I would get in trouble for that. So there was just so much fear around making mistakes and just trying to do everything I could and manipulate the circumstances so that no one was ever making a mistake and everything was always running smoothly so that I never got in trouble. And that was the majority of my childhood was like living under that kind of microscope every single day. It was pretty terrible, I have to say.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
seems exhausting, a lot of energy.
Mhm.
And definitely you did not grow up with believing there are no mistakes. 'Cause
No.
that just confirmed there are mistakes.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you were basically wired to believe there are mistakes
Yeah.
because you were constantly being corrected.
Mhm.
So this was a completely different concepts. So Shanice, how did that feel to you? So what were you feeling while you were going through this, like all these mistakes and having to be, told that it's wrong all the time?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I was afraid. Like, I very much lived in a state of fear. But with that came a lot of embarrassment and shame because every time I was called out for something that, I didn't realize I had done or I had tried very hard because I was so afraid, I worked really hard to not be wrong. And so, a kid who's spending all this time studying and making sure that, I can have all of the correct answers. And then I would slip up and it was just very discouraging and it would be very embarrassing. And because it wasn't only in the home, if we were out and I was asked a question and I didn't know the answer, there would be a lecture right then and there in the middle of the grocery store, like no matter where we were. And so it was very embarrassing and very shameful to receive that kind of treatment. I mean, it's bad enough having it be in private, but then, having to experience that in public. Yeah. So there was a lot of fear, a lot of embarrassment, and a lot of shame that I've done a lot of work towards.
I see how you would have to do a lot of work towards Shanice because that just to regulate your nervous system
Mhm.
from I can feel it even when you're talking,
Yeah.
that pain and that fear and that constant living in anxiety. That to me, it's
Mhm.
just like a constant anxiousness.
Constant. It was
Yeah,
constant.
because if you're like scrutinized for, did I dot my I, or cross my T's, that is like, oh my gosh, like you probably couldn't just rest.
No.
Like, there was no rest in that. There was always feeling like you're under the magnifying light.
Yeah, I was constantly on edge, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Like what's the next thing gonna be? Like what is gonna be pointed out next? So I was also, because of that, very like self-critical and hyper vigilant. Yes, that's the word of myself, constantly monitoring my own actions, everything I was saying, everything I was
Oh,
doing to make sure that it wasn't anything that was going to get his attention and it wasn't anything that was going to get me in trouble.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is Shanice, that is exhausting, and I'm sure a lot of people listening probably have some similar experiences with
Yeah.
that. That definitely makes sense too, why it led you to be this perfectionist, because then it would be safe.
Yeah.
That is makes sense when people like it's like the only way it's safe is if I am doing everything perfect, which what is perfect? Because now there is nothing perfect. And
Mhm.
who's perfect? You're perfect, my perfect, who's perfect? Like what perfect are we, ranging
Yeah,
that
what
with?
even is perfect?
Right. And it's whoever was raising you, their form of perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody has a different representation for that.
Version of that,
But
yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh, Shanice. See, and it's interesting because for me, I grew up, we could make mistakes. So I don't, it was more like I was brought up more like everything happens for a reason.
Mm.
So I always knew that everything just happened for a reason,
Yeah.
So that was how the view of mistakes for me. I didn't really, not that I thought everything was right, but I also just didn't think of it as a mistake because if it happened, it was happening for a reason. So it
Yeah.
would be a mistake if it was supposed to happen. So I never like went there because it literally was just like, well, it happened for a reason.
That's wonderful.
I will go with that.
Yeah, that's a night and day difference right
I,
there.
hence, I'm not a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Um, because I don't I know, but I can see, I can, feel it from you, and we're not even in the same state. The energy of that, wow, Shanice, what was the shift in perspective then for you
Yeah.
that, what was the shift?
Uh, well, okay, I would say the biggest shift for me now is being able to be myself because I mean, growing up, I thought I believed I had to be perfect. But there's literally no way that I could have been my authentic self while constantly feeling like I had to perform,
Yeah, impossible.
and be the best. There was no room to make a mistake. So could I have been authentic? There
Yeah.
was literally no way for me to. So having done a lot of healing towards that, I mean, a lot of healing, a lot of self-parenting there and reteaching my inner child, like, no, it's okay. You can make as many mistakes as you need. Like, it's okay to not always have to be on and to not feel like I have to be perfect. So that's, I would say, is the biggest thing. And, another one is I am not my mistakes. Like, I make mistakes, right? But I'm not my mistakes. And because of the environment I grew up in, I felt so much so that it wasn't just that I was making a mistake, is that there was something wrong with me, I was a mistake. And
Yeah.
so really like going and getting into my subconscious mind, changing all of that up and really teaching myself that no, like what I do is separate from who I am. And that mistakes are not anything to fear. Like even when I do make a mistake, they're actually amazing opportunities. I mean, that's the only way that we can grow and learn is to make a mistake, is to fall short and then learn from that.
Yeah.
And, because I was so focused on being perfect, mistakes back then were just, I mean, it was just terrible. Like, I would get so down on myself, and now it's more exciting because I view them as, like, a treasure map, the X on the chest, and you're
Yeah.
going on the journey, and you're trying to reach the X on the chest. Like, mistakes now are just they're amazing because I get to learn, I get to grow, I get to experience life. So I'm no longer as afraid of making them as I used to be. I mean, before I would go into like full panic. And now, now I've done so much work, I can laugh it out. I
Yeah.
can laugh at myself.
Well, and I think it's true for a lot of us that we just especially as children, when we're told something, we take it literally and we over identify with whatever is being told to us. So, I mean, like listening to that happening, whatever, when you were a child and being overly corrected, yes, it makes sense that you would think that you are your mistakes because
Yeah.
we take it so internally, like it's part of us. We're so enmeshed with our family, we're so enmeshed with what they're telling us, and we do internalize it, make it all about us, and then we carry that into adulthood.
Yeah.
So, it makes sense that you would feel that, and what a great shift in perspective to realize that I am not my mistakes.
Hmm.
And also, there are no mistakes. To me, it's the
Exactly.
biggest shift in perspective at which we started the beginning of this whole podcast with from a spiritual perspective that you've truly never have made a mistake. Like, just take that one sentence. It's just our perceptions, when it's limited and being like again, in your family home, very limited, and now move this out to a worldly level
Yeah.
that on a big perspective shift, because I know for me, that was a perspective shift, just not just inside, but all around me, that everything is lining up for the next thing. And I do a lot of reading and when I'm reading books like that, and I love that. So
Yeah.
it really that shift in perspective that it's just it's all working out. It all needed to happen. Back to what I was saying, everything happens for a reason. It needed to happen to
Yeah.
get to here. So it can't be a mistake. The universe does not operate in errors. And I love that.
It really, I like learning that really changed things for me, Lori. I am so grateful that that wisdom and knowledge came my way because I mean, I remember being shocked actually the very first time I read that from a spiritual perspective. There are no mistakes. And that was just so healing for me in so many ways to intellectualize that and then emotionalize that.
And it really the other perspective shift with that, Shanice, it really takes us straight out of victimhood. Because
Mhm.
we can't be a victim to anything in our environment when we know there are no mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's another big and so that's why some people don't care to hear this, and when I know for myself, I'll speak for me, that
Mhm.
that was a very hard, thing when they're like, "Oh, there's, everything happens for a reason," and when I had to really ingest that a lot, it's like, I can't be a victim." Really? Um So I can understand why some would not prefer to hear this,
Yeah.
that they would prefer to hear that there are mistakes and that the universe didn't get it right.
Yeah.
I get that. I really understand both sides of it. But the perspective shift that there are no mistakes, it really, how this changed everything for me is I don't dwell on things. So I'd much rather, like, I know I'm in a victim spot, I'm dwelling. I am stuck in the past. I am not moving forward. I am just not good. But the having this concept and this perception of there is no mistakes, I know that everything is happening for me. I'm not stuck in, but what if I should have been with that last guy. Oh my God. If I would have just said this, maybe he would have stayed. Or if I would have done this, maybe this wouldn't have happened. These are some of the things that I don't have to do that
Yeah.
because there are no mistakes.
And how much energy do you save now, not going round and round and round?
Yeah, it's just like we don't look at it as a negative thing. We just take it in like, okay, it's not always comfortable. It's not always like when we feel that like, oh, wish it would have went this way or that way, talking more now like on a worldly level. It's not that we don't feel that because we can have disappointment, but we don't have to go to the next level, take disappointment into a mistake.
Yes.
It's just disappointment. It's just not meant to be. Or not meant to be right now or whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. We can let it be. That's how
Yeah.
I like just let it be.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, bottom line, like, what else has come in for you that it's really changed for you, now, especially Shanice, since for you, you've really grew up with such control, like being taught that there is mistakes and you're
Mhm.
not doing the right thing and scrutinized. So now with this whole different perspective shift for you, since yours was a huge change, like what's the biggest thing that it changed for you in your current life? Like, what can you give us that today that now is so different?
So when we were in school together, do you remember how we had to pick our like top 3 survival mechanisms
Yes.
that we use for pretty much everything?
Yeah.
Well, one of mine was perfectionism. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
And so having that awareness was super helpful. And I've been working with it since I realized like how hard that is for me and how much I use it. And so I've gotten so much better with that, Lori. So what has it changed? My perfectionist tendencies, because I'm no longer so afraid of making a mistake and I've really realized how beneficial it is. I'm no longer holding such a tight grip on trying to make sure everything is perfect all the time and I'm always doing everything right and everything is always correct. It's like I
Got
just
more
let
energy.
myself be. Yes, I have more energy. I let myself be. And that has just been wonderful, truly so healing for me in so many ways to just allow myself to be.
I love that.
And I mean, I know I will say the word mistake to you, Laura, and you're like, there's no mistakes. And I'm like, right, 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 right. So it's really, but I love that though, because it's helped me take that word out of our language.
Mhm.
And I don't really use that word as much, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And even when I do, it no longer has a negative connotation. So
Mhm.
like I'll say it more in just the sense that we're human
Mhm.
and, we're going to mess up.
Yeah, and it's not and it's but it's for us. I think
Yes,
the mistake
exactly.
is always giving the feeling like it's wrong, it's bad, it's like you could have done something different.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what it's giving. And that's why I think I always have a hard time hearing the word mistake because it's like, it actually gives me a negative, like, oh, no, like, yeah, I can mess up, but it wasn't a mistake.
Yes.
It was like, I needed to mess up. I needed to take this detour. I needed to have this relationship that wasn't for me. It wasn't a mistake that when someone said, I was married for 5 years too long. What a mistake. No, it actually is where I needed to go to get whatever I was getting. Hopefully, like again, if you frame mistake to learning experience, then you actually can take something away from where you were that you didn't feel good about. You know what I
Yes.
mean? That's the goal is like, so when you reframe mistake as to, no, I messed up, but it was a great learning experience. Cause that's usually what I say when of course I have so many things that, oh my God, why did I do that? What the heck am I thinking? Or made so many interesting turns that I shouldn't have probably. But again, it was a learning experience. So it couldn't be framed as a mistake. It was like not so fun. It was not so great. But what did I learn? And when I can just say, instead of focusing, change the focus. I guess that's
Yeah.
what It's like change the focus to like looking at where I messed up and being like so down on myself. What did I learn?
Yeah, what did you
Where
get
can
from
this
it?
take me? Where can I reflect and go differently next time? Or what made me go that way? Get curious. Get
Mhm.
like, okay, let's look at this. Okay, I chose this. And why did I do that? And how would I do it differently now? Because if you don't do all that reflection, you're going to do that same learning experience, let's say not mistake. And when people go, I keep repeat, well, there you go. That's why. So it's taking that time then to reflect. And if we call it a learning experience, I think that we can, it makes me think, Shanice, when we reframe it to a learning experience, I can actually reflect with it. If I reframe it to a mistake, I am pushing it away.
Yeah.
I am not looking at it. I am closed off. It's a mistake.
Yeah.
There's no looking into it. So I think that's why I think when I hear it, it's like, oh, because there is none. And that doesn't help me then because I will never look at it because it was just a mistake. It
Yeah.
already just pushed out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And that's actually one thing that I have changed is reframing the word mistake to learning experience and viewing it as a learning experience. What is there to be afraid of? Why would you feel bad about something you learned? Why would you
Yeah.
villainize something that's helped you grow? You wouldn't. And
Yeah.
so
No, the ego likes that.
reframing.
The ego actually can take that in. The ego is like,
Mhm.
ooh, actually is like, ooh, like, like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you had a learning experience. Way to
Yes.
go. But you had a mistake. Oh, you bad girl.
Right. Right.
Right? So it's like we can just it's just a way to take things in differently, and I can really appreciate then all the things that I've done in my life and look at them with a level of gratitude because again, I see that everything on a bigger level is lining up. It
Yeah.
had to go there to go here, and this had to happen here to go here. It's
Yeah.
just it had to happen.
And so you no longer dwell on all of the what ifs,
Oh.
because that's I mean, and I've gotten caught up in that definitely so many times in my life, like, what if, what if, what if?
Yeah. Oh, we all have. So have I. Like,
Yeah.
when I go unconscious to this, but deep down, like I said, I just know there are no mistakes and I'm right where I'm supposed to be. That's the other thing. If you know there's no mistakes, the perspective shift is we are right where we are supposed to be. How
Yes.
comforting is that?
How
That's
wonderful is that?
comfort.
It's
Like for
such a
me,
difference.
you can just go and rest and read your book and not think shoulda, coulda, woulda. You can sit
Mhm.
there and go, I'm right where I need to be. But the key to that is back to reframing it as learning experience because you could keep repeating unnecessarily if you want to. But reframing is learning experience and trying to reflect and trying to take a different experience so it doesn't feel so not what you want it to do. Um, that's just helpful.
Yeah. And I'll say another thing too, when I was stuck in perfectionism, I would literally become paralyzed whenever I had to make a decision because I
Huh.
was so afraid of making the wrong decision. I was petrified of making a mistake that decisions were horrifying for me.
Yeah.
Horrifying. And so, really reframing mistake as a learning experience has not only helped me be more confident in making decisions because now there isn't so much pressure to make the right one. If I take a left and then, realize halfway down the road I should have taken a right, like, oh, okay, well now I know it's a right. It's not like, there's just no like the stakes aren't so high. When I was a kid, the stakes were so
Oh,
high, but they're not anymore. And it's like, it's so wonderful. And also one thing I struggled a lot with was looking at my past and looking at all the choices I made. And it's so funny because me being such a loving person, I was always so proud of that and proud of the choices I made that came from love. And after doing so much healing, I look back and I was just like, wow, how many times was I thinking I was loving and I was actually just abandoning myself? And so I'm so proud of myself because had this been a while ago, I would have been like, my God, I spent so many years so afraid of making a mistake and thinking I was making all of these right choices. And now with this new perception, I can look back and be like, No, that was not it. But that's okay because oh my God, how much did I learn from making thousands of left turns?
That brought you here. It brought
Yes.
you here. It literally
Yeah.
brought you here, and that you don't have to sit in indecisiveness,
Yeah.
which can be very painful to
Yeah.
just not
Yeah.
being able to make a decision and be so indecisive. Bottom line, it's just freer and more comfortable and more accepting, more acceptance. The more I
Yes.
think we can all just accept,
And
the
surrender.
lighter we feel.
Allow.
Right? It brings so much rest and comfort, and that's, to me, what it's about, and that's why we brought this change of perspective to our podcast to hopefully help others with this shift in perspective that is really important to us, that is a really core value that
Yeah.
does, create so much other greatness in our life.
Yeah, and not everyone may have had the upbringing I did where making a mistake was so fatal and scrutinized.
Yeah, like me.
But we are we are growing up in in a society that makes us feel bad for making mistakes or makes us try to avoid mistakes. And so the more we can reframe the word mistake to learning experience and just allow ourselves to learn, and all the different facets and all the different ways, I think it would just create a better world altogether for
Have
everyone.
as many learning experiences while you are on this planet to learn, get many of them.
Yes.
Many, 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 many learning experiences.
Yes.
Gather them in because this is a wonderful opportunity that we get to be in this consciousness and have learning experiences.
Yes,
So
I mean, why else are we here if not to live and to learn?
to
Like,
learn, take
on.
it in. That's why we chose to come here, to learn. So don't put any good or bad to it. Just learn. Just
Yes.
keep learning and do
Yes.
it and fail and learn again. Fail to succeed. Just keep learning.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Shanice, to wrap it up in this episode, we discussed the shift in perspective that there are no mistakes and how it led us to embrace life's learning experiences without any judgment.
Exactly. I'll say that again without any judgment.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode. If this episode spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it. And thank you guys for listening to Branching In with Shanice.
And Lori, join us for our next episode. We post on Fridays. See you then. Bye.